Well,
Neat. Good update.
let me start inside with these handouts, and we're going to begin because the landscaping effort kind of started at the previous location of St. John's on Locust and Reed. There was a redwood tree that had been with the little church for as long as anybody could remember. And when it was decided that that church chapel would be moved here to this location, the problem was that there were sycamore trees on both sides of the corner that the church was located on. And to remove that tree, one of those trees, so we would have access to the street, was going to cost us $10,000. The city was going to charge us $10,000 for the loss of the tree. So what we decided to do was to cut down the redwood tree, which would give us room to move the church in between two of the sycamore trees. And the redwood tree was sawed into timber, kiln dried, and then used in this part of the church, which is, you see these redwood beams here, vertical beams on the trusses. And it also was the source of the cross behind the altar. And then the basket that is passed every Sunday was also from that redwood tree.
The alms basins?
Yes.
Okay. What about the lectern?
No, that was a gift from Pat Field. In her husband's memory. Yeah.
Okay.
So, while it's not landscaping pertaining to the site outside, it nevertheless was part of the beginning of the landscaping effort. So we can see. And there was the little story here about the little redwood tree was designed to cushion the shock that parishioners were going to have when they came to church and no longer saw that tree outside the church.
Do you want to stand under here for the moment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. What I'd like you to do is to just look out here and imagine that there was absolutely no green at all. This is all bare ground. Some of it pretty bad in terms of its composition. Father Rick Matters, who is here, asked me to head up the landscaping committee. The landscape architect told us that if we wanted to do it ourselves, we would probably do a better job than the subcontractor, who would simply have people he would hire from the corner of the street dig a hole and put stuff in. We would dig a hole that was big enough and loosen up the roots and then put it in. But so that's what we did, and little did I know how much we had been. I agreed to bite off. We had about 4 acres here. We ended up with making an arrangement with a wholesale nursery that was somewhere near Oakdale, and every Wednesday and Friday we would get a bunch of vegetation, trees and so forth, that would be put about where that car is that's moving now, and it would be a truckload. And so our job, so that none of the material, because the property wasn't fenced or locked up, our job was to make sure that all of those plants got put in by the weekend. And we had a dedicated group of folks, some of which were in their 80s, even would move wheelbarrows around of dirt. We had umpteen dump trucks of dirt, topsoil, that would come in. You had to spread in order to put the plants in. Good.
Good morning.
Good morning. The first things that went in were on the perimeter, and they are Chinese pistaches. And so we get we planted 47 of those things. There in total were 139 trees planted on the property. Some of them were 5 gallons, some of them 15 gallons. Some of them, like those pistachios, came in boxes that were this square. So we had to knock the wood off, and we had some equipment that would bring that bulk and dig the hole first, and then help us put it in. So we had to then fill in the dirt and put stakes in the ground and tether the tree to the stakes so that they wouldn't lean. One of my regrets is that these trees had their stakes pulled too soon. And the wind, there's nothing to break the wind that comes from the west. So everything is leaning, whereas the other trees pretty much are straight up because these are ginkgos.
Yeah. The pistachios are the ones we see.
Yeah, the ones are right in the foreground.
And so all 47 were put here, were they?
No, they are all perimeter from where
The grass is.
where the dead hedge is in the grass,
Okay.
all the way around, not in the front, but then on the far side as well. 47 Chinese pistaches.
Wow.
And then there were, there were some bronze loquats, which were in the front, and we lost.
We're doing the ground.
We lost 11 trees, and over time, either they died or they were in need of being cut down because their roots were causing some problems. Landscape architecture says there are no perfect trees. They either drop seeds, drop fruit, roots cause sidewalks or whatever to buckle. So you just cut it. But the Chinese pistache were chosen because they're hardy, and in the fall we use some color when they turn red. The trees along this perimeter, along the sidewalk, were called red spire ornamental pears, and they're on the sidewalk and also on the interior part of the wall of the middle of the church. We tried to, the plan called for some boxwoods that were going to be in front of the big window outside, but at the time nurseries had a virus, and all of the nursery stock was not available because it was diseased. So we put in Japanese maples. And let's see what else we have down here. Oh, just the scale of some of this stuff is amazing. How about 236 gallon size of holly along the perimeter? And we wanted to create a screen, if you will, for the church. So that's all holly on this side, and also on the other side, Japanese and Burford holly. And those were typically in 1 gallon to 5 gallon sizes. The ground was so hard that we finally resorted in some cases to getting a power auger, and we had to one of us had to be on top of that auger with our body weight in order to cut through the clay. And the problem was at the chapel and in some parts of the area we ran into hardpan, and of course on the mound, the hill up there, it was deliberately compacted to hold the weight of the chapel. The hedge that you see in the spring that blooms, that's in the middle of the parking lot that the cars nose into, is pretty much India hawthorn, and that also is in the front of the church, and various types of India hawthorn. Let's see. The chapel has been very problematic. Initially, everything we planted there, none of it made it. It all died. And one of our longtime parishioners, who functioned as senior warden and morning prayer provider, Frank Pegg. He was our English accent-speaking parishioner. Frank donated the funds necessary to re-landscape around the chapel in honor of his wife Joyce, and that, thank goodness, is taken. There were no gutters on the chapel, so we had to put in a French drain. It was probably that deep, filled with gravel, that would slope down and get the water away from the building, which also helped the plants to survive because the roots weren't grounding. Let's see. Well, when it came time, I said that we had to umpteen dump trucks of dirt, topsoil, which had to be moved pretty much by wheelbarrow or a small tractor with a scoop on it. When it came time for grass, this was not sodded, but it was sprayed on. The grass was sprayed on. And it had a blue gel, so the whole area was blue with grass seed. And it worked pretty well. One of the little side notes is that as the grass was sprouting, we noticed in the foreground along Lower Sac that there were bare spots appearing. And we showed up one day and then we found out why. You've probably heard while you've been here at the service a rooster from time to time. Well, there were chickens with that rooster, and they had found the grass seed, and they were pecking the grass seed and creating the bare spots. So we tried to. There were several of us. We tried to catch them with a big fishing net. Couldn't do it. But one of the chickens flew out into Lower Sac, the lanes heading south, and here comes the traffic. And we thought, oh no. But the traffic passed, and it was sort of like a cartoon. It was like, Wile E. Coyote, he falls off a cliff and dusts himself off. The chicken sort of dusted himself off and took off again. No worse for the wear. Yeah.
It wasn't why did the chicken cross the road?
No, that's right. Yeah. Let's see. Another problem we had, it wasn't so much landscaping, but when the building was first put up in the back, the west entrance, Beth probably remembers this. We were visited by swallows, and they were creating a mess because they were building their nests up there and then creating a problem down below, and there are laws against disturbing the nest once they're in there. So we had a couple of parishioners that had hose duty, and before the nest could get finished, they would be up on the ladder with a stream of water trying to knock the nest down, the mud down. Yeah.
Jan was really good at that.
Jan,
Very, very good. Yours truly is not so good at it. Not as tall.
Some of the temporarily stopped.
Yeah.
There are some great donations here. This problem here was, or I should say, this vegetation here was donated by Gwen Hayden, who you may remember, and some of the trees here were donated by a couple of other parishioners, B.J. Jones and Barbara Jones and Gretchen Nelson. Yeah, the birches. And those redwoods were also donated by Gwen. We had the architect called for 4 on the mounds, 4 California live oaks, and for whatever reason, only a couple of them survived. So Gwen said, well, why don't we just frame the building with the redwoods? And so that's what we have there, those redwoods on both sides of the church. Yeah, the columns that are on the south side of the chapel there, and this is true also of the, we can walk back to actually, we can see more.